The Great Fleet Review was the grandest military event in the known galaxy. Every 10 cycles, the most powerful empires gathered at the Zereth Dominion's home system to showcase their fleets. It was a display of strength, a message to allies and rivals alike. Massive battleships, larger than cities, floated in formation, their hulls glowing with energy shields. Dreadnoughts, armed with weapons capable of destroying moons, lined up in perfect rows. Swarms of sleek interceptors danced between the giants, demonstrating their agility. The vastness of space was filled with the power of the galaxy's strongest forces. At the heart of it all, the Zereth High Command watched from their flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. It was a vessel of unmatched size and firepower, the pride of the Zereth Dominion. High Commander Velcor Thrain, a towering figure with crimson-scaled skin and golden armor, observed the event with satisfaction. "Magnificent, isn't it?" said Admiral Vrax, standing beside him. "Each empire brings its best, hoping to prove they are worthy of respect." Velcor nodded. "As it should be. Strength rules the stars." The review continued for hours. The Krell war clans displayed their brutal war barges, covered in spiked armor and massive rail cannons. The Vasheri Ascendancy, masters of energy warfare, revealed their shimmering golden ships. Elegant but deadly, each fleet was impressive, each a symbol of power. Then something unexpected happened. A small fleet appeared at the edge of the system. The ships were tiny, laughably small compared to the titanic warships surrounding them. There were only 12 vessels in total, each no larger than a Zereth corvette. And yet, they moved with eerie precision. At first, no one paid much attention. The minor race, perhaps. The lost civilian convoy. But then, the tiny fleet entered the formation of the Great Fleet Review, without permission. Laughter erupted across the command channels. "Whose pathetic ships are those?" A Krell warlord chuckled. "Are they lost? Their hulls are so thin. One shot would turn them into dust," sneered a Vasheri noble. The Zereth officers, however, were not amused. "This is an official event," Admiral Vrax growled. "Who allowed them in?" No one had an answer. The ships carried no known insignia. Their design matched no registered species in the galactic database. Yet their movements were precise, too disciplined for a primitive race. High Commander Velcor narrowed his eyes. "Open a channel. I want to know who dares to enter our review uninvited." A communication request was sent. A moment passed. Then another. No response. Strange. Even the weakest species would respond out of fear. Velcor's patience wore thin. Send a direct hail. Demand their identification. A Zereth officer activated the system-wide broadcast. "Unidentified fleet, you are in restricted space. State your name and purpose immediately." Silence. Then, a single message arrived. Text only. "We are observing." That was all. No species name. No explanation. Just 2 words. A cold feeling spread through the command center. Observing. That wasn't the answer of a frightened species. It was the answer of someone who didn't care about the rules of the Great Fleet Review. Velcor's claws tapped against the control panel. "What do our scans say? Are they armed?" A Zereth technician quickly checked the sensor data. Then, confusion flickered across his face. "Sir, our scans are unable to fully analyze their ships. Their hulls are made of an unknown material, and we can't detect their internal systems." Velcor's eyes darkened. "That is impossible." "It gets stranger, Commander." The technician hesitated. "They are not broadcasting any power signatures, yet they are fully operational. No known engine type, no visible weapon ports, yet they move with absolute control." The laughter from the other fleets faded as the realization set in. These ships were not ordinary. The Zereth High Command exchanged uneasy glances. Was this some kind of trick? A new stealth technology from a rising empire? Admiral Vrax sneered. "Enough of this mystery. If they won't speak, we will force them to." Velcor considered for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. We will offer them a mock battle. A simple test. If they refuse, we'll have our answer. If they accept, we'll see what they're made of. A new transmission was sent. Unidentified fleet, we challenge you to a mock battle to test your capabilities. Accept or leave at once. For the first time, the tiny fleet responded immediately. Accepted. Velcor smiled, showing his razor-sharp teeth. This would be over quickly. After all, how could such small ships possibly stand against the might of the great fleets? What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that this was the beginning of a legend that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The challenge had been sent, and the mysterious tiny fleet had accepted without hesitation. Across the Great Fleet Review, amusement turned into curiosity. The greatest fleets in the galaxy had gathered here, each representing centuries of war and conquest. And yet, these unknown, tiny ships had the audacity to accept a mock battle against them. On the command bridge of the Dominion's Wrath, High Commander Velcor Thrain leaned back in his seat, a smirk on his scaled face. Interesting. Either they are fools, or they know something we don't. Admiral Vrax chuckled. It won't matter. Even if they have some tricks, our ships are superior in every way. Velcor nodded. We will use standard engagement rules. No live weapons, just simulated hits. Let us see what these observers can do. A Zirith officer turned to his console. Sir, the challenge parameters have been sent. We are awaiting their response. Seconds later, the tiny fleet sent back the battle confirmation. Once again, no voice, no video, just a simple text message. Confirmed. Commence. Velcor raised an eyebrow, still refusing to show their faces. How very mysterious. The battlefield was set. The Zirith Dominion's Second Fleet, a force of 20 warships, would face the 12 tiny ships in a controlled simulation. The battle would be judged based on maneuverability, tactical positioning, and simulated hits registered by training weapons. The rules were clear. No real destruction. No actual deaths. Just a demonstration. But deep down, Velcor already knew how this would end. No species in the galaxy could match the might of the Dominion's warships, especially not a fleet so laughably small. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Battle start. Immediately, the Zirith warships surged forward, their massive forms moving with coordinated discipline, their targeting systems locked onto the tiny ships, ready to simulate fire. But something was wrong. The tiny ships vanished. Velcor's eyes widened. Where did they go? The battlefield hologram showed only empty space where the tiny fleet had been. No warp signatures, no cloaking distortions, just gone. The Zirith captains, confused, searched their scanners. High Commander, we've lost visual. No ships detected. Impossible. Velcor roared. Find them. Now. Then, without warning, the tiny fleet reappeared behind them. Like ghosts emerging from the void, the 12 ships materialized in perfect formation directly behind the Zirith Second Fleet. Their weapons instantly locked onto every major warship. And then, simulation over. The training system registered simulated destruction of the entire Zirith fleet. The tiny ships had scored fatal hits on every major vessel in less than 30 seconds. A stunned silence filled the bridge of the Dominion's Wrath. Velcor's claws dug into his command chair. That was not possible. Admiral Vrax stared at the battlefield display, his mouth slightly open. They moved faster than our sensors could track. They were there. And then they weren't. The entire battle had ended before the Zirath could fire a single shot. Across the Great Fleet Review, astonishment spread like wildfire. The mighty Zirith Dominion, the feared conquerors of 1,000 worlds, had been completely overwhelmed by ships no bigger than corvettes. And it had happened instantly. The other species, once laughing, now watched in uneasy silence. The Krell warlord who had mocked the tiny fleet earlier was speechless. The Vasheri nobles, who had sneered at their size, were now exchanging worried whispers. Something was very, very wrong. Velcor clenched his fists. This must be a trick. A hacking attempt on our systems. There is no way they could have moved like that. But then, a new transmission came in. Unlike before, it was not text. It was a video. A shadowed figure appeared on the holographic display. The face was hidden, but the voice was clear, calm, and undeniably confident. This was only a demonstration. The words sent a chill through the command center. Velcor growled, his patience snapping. "Who are you? Identify yourselves." There was a pause. Then the figure leaned forward slightly. "This fleet is human-made." The bridge fell silent. Velcor felt his heart pound in his chest. Humans. The insignificant species that had only recently entered the galactic stage. The weak race that had no empire, no colonies, no history of war beyond their own planet. There was no way they could build something like this. Admiral Vrax's voice was hoarse. "It's a bluff." The shadowed figure tilted its head slightly. "Is it?" Then, the video feed cut off. The silence in the command center was heavy. No one spoke. No one moved. Velcor inhaled slowly, his hands tightening into fists. If this was true, if humans had built these ships, then the galaxy had seriously underestimated them. And now, it might be too late to stop what was coming. The command deck of the Dominion's Wrath was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. The words still echoed in High Commander Velcor Thrane's mind. This fleet is human-made. Humans. A minor species, a species so new to the galactic stage that most empires barely acknowledged them. They had no vast colonies, no legendary war history. They were not feared. They were barely even noticed. And yet, their fleet had just humiliated the mighty Zereth Dominion in seconds. Admiral Vrax finally broke the silence. His voice was unsteady. We should challenge them again. The system must have glitched. It wasn't real combat." Velcor's claws tapped against his chair. His mind raced. Was it a trick? Some kind of advanced simulation interference? But how could they have done that? Their ships vanished. Their attacks registered perfect hits on every major Zereth warship. And most disturbing of all, they never even fired visible weapons. Velcor exhaled sharply. Contact them again. This time, demand to know their purpose. The communication officer hesitated before sending another transmission. The entire Great Fleet Review was now focused on the Zereth flagship, waiting for its next move. Every race present had just witnessed the impossible. Seconds passed. Then, a new message arrived. No further demonstrations are required. The lesson is complete. Velcor's eyes narrowed. A lesson. Admiral Vrax slammed his fist on the console. They mock us. His voice was filled with anger. Shall we allow them to leave after this insult? The galaxy is watching, Commander. If we do nothing, we will be seen as weak. Weak. The word burned in Velcor's mind. He could already sense the shifting tensions. The Krell war clans had stopped laughing. The Vasheri nobles, once smug, now looked worried. Other races that had long feared Zerath's power were whispering among themselves. If Velcor did nothing, it would shake the Zereth Dominion's reputation. He could not allow that. He stood, his golden armor gleaming under the bridge's light. Order the fleet to surround them. They will not leave without answering our questions. The officers hesitated. The tiny fleet had already proven its abilities. Was this a mistake? But none dared to challenge Velcor's order. Within moments, dozens of Zereth warships moved into position, forming a massive blockade around the 12 mysterious vessels. Weapons were powered up, not for a mock battle this time, but for a real one. The galaxy watched in suspense. Would humanity's fleet run? Would they fight? Then, something unbelievable happened. The human fleet did not move, but the Zereth ships did. One by one, every Zereth warship lost control. Their engines flickered. Their weapons shut down. Their shields collapsed. Panic erupted across the comms. "Commander, our system's air." Velkor watched in horror as his entire fleet went dark. The massive battleships, dreadnoughts, and cruisers floated helplessly. Their controls were frozen. Their targeting systems disabled. In less than 5 seconds, the Zirith Dominion's fleet had been completely neutralized, and the tiny fleet still hadn't fired a single shot. Velkor's breathing became heavy. This was not technology the galaxy had ever seen before. A new message arrived. "You are now defenseless. We could destroy you, but we will not." This was not an act of war. This was a demonstration. Velkor felt a chill run down his spine. This was not an attack. It was a warning. His fists clenched. The mighty Zirith Dominion, one of the most feared powers in the galaxy, had just been reduced to nothing. By humans. He turned to Admiral Vrax. The Admiral was shaking, his pride shattered. "Commander, what do we do?" Velkor exhaled slowly. There was only one choice now. "Stand down." A whisper spread across the Great Fleet Review. The Zirith Dominion had surrendered. And the humans, who had done the impossible, vanished once more into the void, leaving the entire galaxy forever changed. The Great Fleet Review had turned into something else entirely, a moment that would change the galaxy forever. The mighty Zirith Dominion, once feared by all, had been completely neutralized without a single shot being fired. Their warships had gone dark, their systems had been shut down, and their commanders had been left speechless. And the ones responsible. A tiny fleet of human-made ships. Now, the human vessels were gone, disappearing into the vastness of space as mysteriously as they had arrived. But the echoes of their actions remained, shaking the foundations of power across the galaxy. High Commander Velkor Thrain sat in silence aboard the Dominion's Wrath. His golden armor, once a symbol of invincibility, now felt heavy on his shoulders. The comm channels were filled with the voices of other races. Some were in awe, others in fear, but all were asking the same question. Who are the humans, really? Velkor turned to his second-in-command, Admiral Vrax, who still looked pale from the events that had just unfolded. "They let us live," Velkor said at last, his voice quieter than usual. Vrax swallowed hard. Yes, they had the power to wipe us out completely. And yet, they chose not to. That was what disturbed Velkor the most. If it had been another empire that had humiliated the Zirith, they would have crushed them in return. Yet, the humans had done something far more terrifying. They had simply left. They had made their point, then disappeared, as if the battle had never even mattered to them. A deep sense of unease filled Velkor's chest. If humans truly held this level of power, why had they remained hidden for so long? And more importantly, what was their real purpose? The galaxy reacts. News of the Zirath's defeat spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, the other empires were now forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew. The Krell war clans, who respected only brute strength, held an emergency meeting. Their high warlord, a massive battle-scarred beast named Gorthar, growled in frustration. "We have fought every race in this galaxy," he snarled, slamming a fist on the table. "But never have we seen a power like this. If the humans wished to conquer us, we would already be dead." A silence fell over the warlords. They understood the truth. Humans had revealed their power not as conquerors, but as a warning. Across the Vausheri Ascendancy, a species known for their advanced energy technology, the ruling nobles debated in hushed voices. "They neutralized the Zirith without a single weapon strike," whispered Grand Seer Vailana, her violet eyes filled with concern. "If their technology surpasses even ours, should we fear them?" An older noble, his face lined with wisdom, nodded slowly. "We should not fear them. We should respect them. And more importantly, we should not provoke them." For the first time in history, the greatest powers of the galaxy were united in one thought. Do not anger the humans. The secret meeting. Back aboard the Dominion's Wrath, Velcor received a private transmission. The sender was unknown, but the encryption was of the highest level. Velcor hesitated, then accepted the call. A holographic figure appeared before him. It was a human, their face hidden in shadow. "You have questions," the figure said, their voice calm. "I have answers." Velcor straightened, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" The figure paused, then responded, "We are humanity, and we have been watching you for a long time." Velcor's blood ran cold. "Watching? For how long?" The human continued, "Your species, your wars, your rise to power, we have observed all of it. Then why reveal yourselves now?" Velcor demanded. "Why here? Why at the Great Fleet Review?" The human's voice remained emotionless. "Because it was necessary." A long silence followed. Then the human spoke again. "The galaxy believes strength is measured by destruction. We do not." Velcor's jaw clenched. "Then what do you believe?" The human's shadowed face remained still. "We believe true power is knowing you can win, but choosing not to fight." The words struck Velcor harder than any weapon. The human continued. "Today was a lesson. A warning. The galaxy must change. If it does not, the next time we appear, we will not be so merciful." Then, without another word, the hologram flickered and vanished. Velcor stared at the empty space where the human had stood. His hands trembled. He finally understood. The humans had not come to conquer. They had come to correct the balance of power. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The message from the humans lingered in High Commander Velcor Thrane's mind like a shadow that refused to fade. The galaxy must change. If it does not, the next time we appear, we will not be so merciful. Velcor sat in his command chair aboard the Dominion's Wrath, staring at the holographic display of the empty battlefield where the human fleet had disappeared. They had shut down the mighty Zirith Dominion's warships without firing a single shot. They had humiliated one of the strongest empires in the galaxy without suffering a single loss. And then, they had simply vanished. Velcor had been in countless battles. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed enemy fleets, and conquered entire worlds. But never, not once, had he felt the fear that now gripped him. Humans were not just strong. They were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. And they had chosen to remain hidden, until now. Whispers of fear. Across the galaxy, the other empires reacted with a mix of fear, confusion, and urgency. On the Krell Warclan's homeworld, the warlords gathered in their great halls, debating furiously. Warlord Gorthar, the most powerful among them, slammed his massive fist on the stone table. "We cannot sit and wait like frightened cubs," he growled. "We must find these humans. We must challenge them. If they are truly strong, let them prove it in open battle." One of his advisors, a lean, scared warrior, shook his head. "You are a fool, Gorthar," he muttered. "They already proved their strength. They defeated the Zirith without a fight. If they wanted war, they would have taken it. But they did not. That is what makes them dangerous." Gorthar clenched his jaw. He hated the feeling of powerlessness. But deep down, even he knew the truth. If the Krell challenged the humans, it might not be a battle. It might be an execution, a silent response. The Vasheri Ascendancy, the most advanced race in energy-based technology, immediately sent their most powerful spies and researchers to uncover the truth. But no matter where they looked, no matter how deep they searched, they found nothing. No trace of human weapon systems. No records of human military strength. No hidden fleets or bases. It was as if the humans had erased their existence from the galaxy itself. The Grand Seer, Velana, sat in her floating meditation chamber, deep in thought. "They are more than warriors," she whispered to herself. "They are shadows in the stars. And they are watching us." The Zirith Council demands answers. Back in the Zirith Dominion, the High Council was in chaos. The most powerful leaders of the Dominion had gathered in the Grand Chamber, their voices raised in anger and confusion. How did this happen? One council member shouted. Where did these humans come from? Another demanded. Why did they let us live? Velkur stood before them, silent. He had no answers. For the first time in his life, he did not know what to do. The head of the council, Lord Xavrin, a cold and ruthless Zirath, narrowed his eyes at Velkur. This humiliation cannot be ignored, Xavrin said. The other empires are watching us. Velkur, if we do nothing, they will see us as weak. Velkur clenched his fists. And what do you suggest, my lord? Shall we send our fleets after them? Against an enemy we cannot track, cannot stop, and cannot even understand. Xavrin's expression darkened. He hated Velkur's words, but he could not deny the truth. We must find their homeworld. Xavrin said at last, we must learn their secrets. If they are truly as powerful as they seem, we must know why. Velkur exhaled slowly. He did not like where this was going, but he also knew there was no other choice. The hunt for humanity. Within hours, the largest intelligence operation in galactic history was launched. The Zirath sent spies, probes, and deep space scouts to search for any trace of human civilization. The Krell war clans sent their fastest warships to explore the dark regions of the galaxy, hoping to find a worthy battle. The Vasheri Ascendancy unleashed their greatest minds to decode any hidden patterns in galactic communications, searching for the invisible empire that had remained hidden for so long. But days passed, then weeks, and still nothing. It was as if the humans had never existed. Yet, Velkur knew the truth. They were still out there, watching, waiting. And the question that haunted every leader, every warrior, every scientist in the galaxy was the same. When will the humans return? And more importantly, what will they do next? The galaxy had never been so unsettled. For weeks, the most powerful empires searched desperately for humanity. They sent out spies, warships, and probes into the darkest corners of space. Yet, no matter how deep they looked, no matter how advanced their technology was, they found nothing. No human homeworld, no hidden fleets, no traces of military bases. It was as if the humans had never existed. And yet, every leader, every admiral, every warrior felt their presence. They knew humanity was out there, watching them. The fear spreads. Across the Zirath Dominion, there was a growing sense of unease. High Commander Velkur Thrain had been given a new mission by the ruling council. Find the humans at all costs. But Velkur knew it was impossible. He had already seen their power firsthand. Their ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. They could disable an entire fleet without firing a single shot. They could vanish without leaving a trace. What kind of civilization possessed such technology? Velkur stood on the bridge of the Dominion's wrath, staring out at the stars. His fleet had been patrolling uncharted space, searching for any sign of human activity. But there was nothing. Commander, Admiral Vrax spoke carefully. We have searched for weeks. Maybe it is best to let them be. Velkur turned sharply. Let them be. They humiliated the Dominion. If we do nothing, the galaxy will see us as weak. Vrax hesitated. Or they will see us as wise. Velkur narrowed his eyes. Explain. Vrax took a deep breath. The humans could have destroyed us, but they didn't. That means they do not seek war. If we push too hard, if we try to hunt them down, we might force them to see us as a threat. Velkur remained silent. The thought had crossed his mind before, but it was not in the Zirath nature to ignore a challenge. Still, something about the humans felt different. A strange discovery. Just as Velkur was about to give the order to continue the search, a new transmission arrived. It was from one of the Dominion's deep space probes. Velkur's eyes narrowed. Play the message. The screen flickered to life. A grainy image appeared, one of the probe's last recorded transmissions before it had been destroyed. A vast structure loomed in the darkness of space. It was not a ship. It was something bigger. A station. A fortress. It was hard to tell. The technology was unlike anything Zereth scientists had ever seen. The structure's metallic surface shifted, almost as if it were alive. Strange energy signatures pulsed from within. And then, the probe was instantly shut down. Velcor felt a chill run down his spine. Was this a human installation? Was this the answer they had been searching for? The risky mission. Velcor wasted no time. He ordered a small task force to investigate the strange structure. A fleet would be too noticeable, but a single stealth vessel might be able to gather information without being detected. The Shadowfang, one of the Dominion's most advanced stealth ships, was sent on the mission. Days later, a final transmission arrived from the ship's captain. Velcor watched the screen as the captain's panicked face appeared. "Commander, we have entered the structure's outer perimeter. This place, it is beyond anything we have seen." Velcor leaned forward. "Explain." The captain's voice shook. "This is not a base. It is something else. Something older. Something powerful." And the transmission cut off. Velcor clenched his fists. The Shadowfang had disappeared. No distress signal. No wreckage. It was as if the ship had been erased from existence. A message from the void. Then, just as Velcor was about to send reinforcements, a new transmission arrived. Not from the Shadowfang, but from the humans. The screen flickered. Once again, a shadowed human figure appeared. "You have gone too far," the human said. "We warned you." Velcor's body tensed. "What is that structure? Is it yours?" The human was silent for a long moment before answering. "It is not ours," they said, "but it is dangerous, and you were never meant to find it." Velcor's eyes widened. "If it is not yours, then whose is it?" The human's voice was calm, but there was something grim behind their words. "Something older than all of us," they replied. "Something that should remain buried." Velcor's mind raced. For the first time, the humans sounded concerned. What could possibly make them afraid? The human leaned forward slightly, their shadowed face unreadable. "You are playing with fire, Commander. If you continue down this path, you will awaken something you cannot stop." Then, before Velcor could respond, the transmission ended. A deep, uneasy silence filled the bridge of the Dominion's wrath. Velcor exhaled slowly, staring at the dark screen. For weeks, he had hunted for humanity's secrets. But now, he had found something else. Something far worse. And for the first time since his defeat, Velcor wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. A heavy silence filled the bridge of the Dominion's wrath. High Commander Velcor Thrain stood motionless, staring at the darkened screen where the human's warning had just ended. "You are playing with fire, Commander. If you continue down this path, you will awaken something you cannot stop." Those words echoed in his mind, over and over. For weeks, Velcor had led the greatest search in the history of the Zereth Dominion, a hunt for the hidden power of humanity. But instead, he had found something else, something that even the humans feared. A dangerous choice. Velcor turned to his officers. Their faces were filled with uncertainty. Even Admiral Vrax, his most trusted officer, looked uneasy. "My lord," Vrax said carefully, "the humans warned us for a reason. We should leave this place. This is not our battle." Velcor clenched his fists. The Zereth were not cowards. They never backed down from a challenge. But this was different. The Shadowfang, one of their best stealth ships, had vanished without a trace near the strange structure. And now, the humans were telling him to turn back. Velcor had two choices: listen to the humans and retreat. This would mean admitting weakness before the entire galaxy. Push forward and investigate the structure. But this could mean waking something far worse. His pride screamed for him to press on. But his instincts whispered a different truth. And for the first time in his career, Velcor listened to his instincts. Retreat and reflection. Recall the fleet, Velker ordered. His voice was firm, but there was an unusual weight behind it. Vrax hesitated. Are you sure, my lord? Velker nodded. I have fought many battles, Admiral, but I have never felt fear like this. Not from an enemy, but from what lies ahead. The crew silently accepted the order. The Zireth never retreated, but today they would. The fleet turned away from the strange structure, activating their faster-than-light drives. Within moments, they vanished into the void. Velker's hands tightened behind his back as he watched the distant structure disappear from the view screen. Had he done the right thing? Or had he just turned away from something that could decide the future of the galaxy? The humans' next move. As the Zireth fleet retreated, a hidden human outpost deep in the void received a private transmission. A single figure, dressed in a dark uniform, watched the message closely. The humans had monitored the Zireth's every move. They had expected Velker to push forward, to ignore their warning. But he had chosen to retreat. The figure leaned back, expression unreadable. Interesting. Another officer, standing beside him, frowned. Do you think they understand now? The first figure exhaled slowly. No, but they have begun to ask the right questions. The officer hesitated. And the structure? What do we do? The first figure's eyes darkened. We do what we must, they said. We seal it away, before someone less cautious comes looking. The galaxy watches. The news of the Zireth retreat spread quickly across the galaxy. For the first time in history, the mighty Zireth Dominion had stepped back from a challenge. The Krell war clans were stunned. Warlord Gorthar sat in silence as his advisors reported the news. The Zireth fled, he muttered, shaking his head. I have never seen them afraid before. One of his generals grunted. Not afraid of an enemy, my lord. Afraid of something else. Gorthar narrowed his eyes. And that, my friend, is even more terrifying. Meanwhile, the Vasheri Ascendancy watched the situation with growing concern. The Grand Seer, Velana, closed her eyes in deep thought. If the humans feared what lay in that place, then we must be careful. There are things in this universe that should remain undisturbed. Across the galaxy, leaders, warriors, and scholars whispered among themselves. Something had changed. The balance of power was shifting. And the humans were at the center of it all. The final message. Back aboard the Dominion's Wrath, Velker sat alone in his private chamber, deep in thought. Then, his console blinked with a new message. It was from the humans. Velker hesitated, then pressed play. The familiar shadowed figure appeared. Their voice was calm but serious. You made the right choice, Velkor Thrain, the human said. But your people will not understand it. They will question you. They will call you weak. Velker's jaw tightened. He knew that already. The human continued. But power is not always about conquest. It is also about knowing when to walk away. Velkor exhaled slowly. And what about you? He asked, knowing the human could not hear him. What will the humans do next? The figure leaned slightly forward, as if answering the unspoken question. We will prepare, they said, because someday someone else will come looking. And when they do, the screen blinked off. Velker sat in silence, staring into the darkness. For the first time in his life, he understood something important. The humans were not conquerors. They were guardians. And the real war had not yet begun.